Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Independence, Philippines. Hello, EBCs. And so I'm so pumped up. First of all, thank you very much, speakers, for your time. Kevin, Samantha, and Albert. So, to those who are watching, I would like you to introduce myself first. I'm not that famous. Not yet. I'm Orly from Entrepreneurship PH. Our goal here, of course, is to help and support, inspire our fellow like-minded people. And Entrepreneur Beach Club continuously working to organize free webinar, free events, free virtual events, so we could help and support our community. In this COVID crisis, we come up with the idea of having a project we call Small Business Europe. We aim to help and, of course, guide the small business owners, especially, of course, those who are struggling. And our first episode for this COVID crisis, Corona mess. And we are, wait. We invited Kevin Jennings from Cebu, United States, also Samantha from Singapore, and Albert Vitavano, our business colleague, to be one of our speaker today. All right. Okay. Well, I'll introduce you guys. I met Samantha Sophia. I love her soul, her energy, and we have something in common. That's why I chase her, I stalk her, and to be part of this webinar. Samantha is a sustainability strategist and chartered engineer in the field of urban and building design. She's an independent consultant based in Southeast Asia and interested in regenerative leadership and responsible business. And I would like to introduce also, can you say hi, Samantha, before I introduce Kevin?
Sorry.
Kevin is also a colleague. I live in Cebu for 7 years. And I met Kevin there, one of our generous gentlemen who's supporting our community in Cebu. Hang on. I got your profile because I don't want to be spontaneous. Kevin is the founder of Flat World Guide, business coach, he's a trainer, and educator. His work includes developing new learning methodologies by joining the latest in the science of learning, established and emerging technologies. Can you say hi to everyone, Kevin, please?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to this webinar. I hope it's a benefit to everyone.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. And our third speaker is young at heart. Still young, Albert. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Albert is the Director of Sales and Marketing at EBC Philippines, being in the technology industry for over 25 years. He's no stranger to ensuring that businesses face pandemic successfully through that's like SARS, your SARS, right? MERS and avian flu. Albert is committed to ensuring that his team remain productive as his clients continue to succeed in digital transformation initiatives. Can you say hi to everyone, please?
Hello, kumusta everybody? Happy Independence Day to everybody, and thank you, Orly, for inviting me to talk about prevailing trends in COVID as well as the post-COVID, and to my co-speakers as well. It's great to meet you guys as well.
Thanks, man. Okay, let's start this. So the topic today is all about, what will be business look like, in 2020 and, of course, this post-COVID shit. All right. Can you tell me or share your opinion? Let's start with Samantha, please. What do you think about what will be the business look like?
So what really comes up for me looking around in the pandemic, you see many different types of leadership behaviors from different types of firms. And so I'm talking about large firms, international firms, as well as right down to small businesses. And I think what really exposes that for me is that firstly, everybody can see it, everybody can hear it, it's all on social media. So there's no hiding. If you're a firm that's behaving in a way that doesn't reflect the gravity of the situation, and instead, for example, they're just immediately. I mean, you heard some news stories such as companies inviting people to a mass Zoom meeting, like 200 people, and then just firing them via Zoom, just on the screen like this, and then that's it. They're not employees anymore. So obviously, this kind of leadership is very, firstly, brutal. Secondly, inhumane. This is not the sort of PR you want for your business, right? Because these things come out on social media. They really make the rounds. They go viral, and then it's really hard to get the worms back to the can once you go down this route. And so, what comes up for me is this point around. It's about how to be responsible as an employer in this crisis, as well as in terms of how can you make this a good thing for your business, right? So, for example, we're also seeing some leadership, for example, from Twitter, which is really, really progressive, saying that employees now get to work from home forever if you want, and we will support you to work from home. So there's certain benefits that now you have extra by working for Twitter as opposed to anybody else, right? And so this is the sort of two extremes that we can see coming out of the pandemic, how businesses are trying to show that they are actively concerned about their employees who are going through COVID internally, right? So externally, what businesses are doing is also, the first few weeks was very annoying for me because you start to see businesses online pushing out, like, oh, you want to work online? Oh, we're working online. Here, attend our webinar, do this, do that. And then you have this saturation of just, things online, especially if you subscribe to a newsletter before. A lot of businesses are just pushing their product or their framework or their whatever out at you. And this is, again, very disrespectful for what your clients are actually looking for. So that's a very inward-looking reaction for a business because you're worried about your sales. You're worried about your bottom line, right? But what the client actually needs may be something different now because of the situation. So it's about being one step ahead. Always need to focus on what it is that the customer actually needs. And you can see some businesses doing that very, very well, and some businesses not even understanding. They go into protection mode. They don't understand that they still need to continue even more to relate to their clients and to relate to their customer base, their target market. So, these are the behaviors that I've been seeing in the pandemic around businesses large and small.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. That's a very good insight. Coming from, of course, on a perspective of a social enterprise, and of course, you've been to invited also in international events, right? And we talk about it on our side with side chat. We have this conversation, and I agree with you. And thank you for sharing your opinions and your perspective about this. Okay. Okay. I'll go to Kevin Jennings because so we could hear your. What do you think about what will be Does
Well,
this look like?
I strongly agree with Samantha's thing that people are either hiding, trying to avoid that there's a problem, or they're panicking and overreacting. And probably neither one of those extremes is very valuable at this time. If it's okay, I'll probably twist this a little bit because you'd asked me to talk about like from a traditional business perspective. I think traditional businesses are probably going to be the worst affected because bricks and mortars companies have to deal with the public, lots of person-to-person contact, whether it's customers, whether it's employees, and also with suppliers. They can't just have something dropped off by Grab. They've got warehouse guys and empty the trucks, and so and their whole supply chains are being affected. So what and I can't predict what it's going to be in 6 months because there's so many different businesses with so many different issues. So what I've been telling my clients is working with my clients on is how to look at this and how to adapt. And everyone needs to decide what their business looks like now is going to look like in 6 months and what it's going to look like in 12 months. Because if you don't have some kind of a projection of what it's going to look like, then you're just hoping it works out well. That's usually a recipe for disaster. And I think all these bricks and mortars, whether it's retail, manufacturing, tourism, and whatever business that would be, they're basically facing the same underlying issue, and that's uncertainty. So what I've been trying to suggest is let's get rid of as much uncertainty as possible, which requires that you don't hide, you don't, pretend everything will be fine in a couple of weeks, because even if the virus disappears tomorrow, they have a vaccine tomorrow, this is going to have lasting effects for a while. The first step is to look at the different variables. What are the different things that are going to impact your business and your industry? If you're just watching social media or reading the news, you're probably just going to be overwhelmed with a lot of information that doesn't pertain to you. You need to find out your specific situation. And everybody's situation is very, very different, depending on your location and your customers. And the first thing I would do is try to determine what the government policies are going to be. And don't guess. Find whatever government agency you can and have some talks or some kind of communication or read their publications. What is their plan? So you can make a wise choice. There's also a lot of trade groups and companies that are actually doing a good job of collecting information, making preparation for when they can open up. For example, the hospitality industry has a whole bunch of information they're sharing with their fellow hotels and stuff on how to prepare the hotels for when things can open up. They may not know when it will be, but they can prepare to be ready when they are. If you wait until it's day to open up, you're going to be a month behind everybody else. And another thing that Samantha said was customers. You've got to figure out who your real customers or your target customers are, the important customers, and have a real genuine conversation with them. You need to understand their real concerns. If you don't understand what's really going on in the customer's mind, you're not going to create solutions. You can't be innovative. You're just guessing. You need to ask them, like, what's keeping you from coming back as a customer? What will it take to get you back to my store? What are you fearful of? What can we do to minimize that fear? And don't guess what it might be. So, like, I'll give my own personal situation. I tend to do a lot of business in coffee shops and co-working spaces. I ground up in Paranaque. And Um, and to me, my concern isn't so much about safety. It's, can I actually meet with people and talk to people? So I'm not going to go to a coffee shop to sit alone and read a book. I can do that at home or sit by my pool. So you need to find out what the issues really are with your customers. Don't just guess. The same thing goes with supply chains. We're just now starting to start facing the problems of supply chain interruptions, because I believe the cycle, I'm not an import exporter anymore, but I think it's about a 3-month lag for imports coming in. So if we start having interruptions in supply chains, you're probably just going to start seeing them now and in the future. And you have logistics issues. So you need to find out, if you're running a restaurant selling pork, you better find out if you have good supply of pork. And if you don't, maybe you need to change your menu. Don't wait until the day when the pork's not there and then you're out of business for 2 weeks and try to, that's too late to get your customers switched over. And the same thing with employees. Have a real conversation with your employees. How they get to work? Can they find a place to live? Are they stressed? Do they feel safe? What do they think about the future? They might be able to give you a lot of information about what's really happening in your marketplace that you don't know, because the customers complain to them. The delivery guy makes some comment about what's happening at the warehouse. Have some honest conversations with your people. I usually recommend to people that plan for the worst, hope for the best. I've changed that, right? It's plan for the most probable, whatever's most likely, and watch and adapt quickly. Okay, don't take your eyes off the outside factors, because it's changing quickly, and you need to adapt faster than your competitors and the marketplace and the government. I hope that helps.
All right. I like that, Kevin. That's better the adapt, amen, quickly. Actually, in this crisis, that's all the business owners, we need to do that. Yeah. Otherwise, we're gonna die. Thank you for sharing, Kevin. Right. So I'll go to Albert. Yeah. Since Albert, you run a co-working space, and even to US, you work with tech companies, in Silicon Valley. Let us know what do you think, what the business will look like.
Right.
Guys, okay, just before he start, please mute your mic, team. So just in case we avoid this echo, which I failed to do it. Sorry, Sam, when you're talking. So, okay, I'll leave the stage to you, or floor to you, Albert, please.
Okay. Well, yeah. So thanks. Great event. I think that I have a different tact. I think it's similar to what Sam was saying earlier. I think that I've actually in researching a lot of different businesses, airlines, franchises, medical health. Again, a part of my business is to ensure that I understand prevailing trends, right? So, of course, I have to educate myself, and what better education can I have than actually talking to people that are being affected by this pandemic? I talked to a pilot friend of mine. I asked how is he doing. He told me 2 different stories, right? Just like Samantha said, there's one company that decides to get rid of pilots, get rid of flight attendants, and that's kind of their tactic. Luckily for my friend, he actually belongs to a airlines that actually is starting to pay them half. So even though they're not working, they're actually paying half. So my question to my friend, I actually posed to him. I said, then what are the likelihood of the pilots and the flight attendants that were let go of by that airline? So what are the likelihood of them actually returning? And he was saying that highly unlikely, in part because the way, when you're faced with adversity, that's where your true nature comes out, right? And a company that actually takes care of their employees, the likelihood that they will come back after the pandemic is higher than when you were let go of. Further to what Kevin was saying earlier, I think it's very important. If you don't understand your consumers, you don't understand your clients, and how their buying habits has transformed as a result of this pandemic, there's no way you can actually build products and services that are aligned to their needs. Their needs prior to the pandemic hitting is vastly different than they are now. In case, when I go to the grocery store, I would spend hour and a half just going. Now that I go, because of the quarantine, I go there. I tell my wife, you got to put it on Google Sheets. I'll be there for 30 minutes tops. I'll buy what I want, and I got to go. So I think that the buying habits has drastically changed. Further to what Orly said earlier, I'm kind of that guy that actually not only has a business that is focused on the brick and mortar, which is what Kevin and Pam was saying earlier. It is brick and mortar. Co-working at the end of the day is brick and mortar. I think we were fortunate enough that we actually have a client in the space that actually services logistics firms, operating logistics. So them facilitating things coming in. So I think we weren't prepared. The reality of the situation, I don't think anybody would have been prepared for this. We were lucky. I mean, no amount of preparation can beat luck. But we were very lucky. We actually had a client there, and they continued to operate. We actually gave them the key to our space because we didn't want to unduly expose them to potential infections. So he's there working happily and keeping the lights on for his company. On the flip side, I also am the director of sales and marketing for Via Appia Philippines. We actually create digital applications for our clients. What that actually means is we have our clientele. They engage us to build either mobile apps or web business apps. The good thing about that particular side of my business is that we were able to keep them servicing them. We kept their applications going, and they in fact launched additional products within this pandemic. So you have from a technology perspective, you actually have two types of people. Either I'm a financial service organization. I am a utilities company. I will stop investments in any technology whatsoever. On the other side, you say that, okay, we have a lull time at the moment, and this is what we're doing an implementation for. We have a lull time at the moment. Let's use this opportunity to actually digitally transform our company. That way, when the markets do open up, I'm well and prepared to really attack the market and really grow the business. So I think that, and I'm the kind of, my philosophy, I'm a I guess a habitual optimist, right? I'm the type of guy that says that when faced with a challenge, I actually find the solution. If not, I'll pivot and find something else to do. So in the case for, people always say about crying over spilled milk, right? Somebody will cry over spilled milk when it's spilled. I'm the guy that will take the rag and go to the floor and wipe it up and then figure out what to do next. So I guess just to kind of close off on what I want to say, but really, if there's any advice that I can give to anybody that's actually listening in, three things, right? Be responsive. Your clients are your clients for a reason. During this pandemic, during this lull period, keep interacting with them. And as Kevin had said, keep understanding what their needs are, how their needs have changed as a result of this pandemic. Reset. If the business model is not working for you, figure out how you can actually either pivot the business model, and I've seen that a lot, especially with franchisees, where they have moved from the whole kiosk brand and now they're doing community selling to keep their life. Reset your business model. You still know what you can do, and you can do it well. Figure out how to deliver it better. And if anything else, once the pandemic lifts, and of course we'll talk about some more technologies later on. When the pandemic does lift, and it hopefully will lift within this year, renew. Reprioritize the way you actually deliver your business and services in a manner that allows you to actually service your client even better, even if it's not what the previous brick and mortar. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. It's a proper mindset to be able to understand where the opportunities lie and how to tackle them.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Albert. That's nice, right? Be responsive. The end user part, we need to focus on them and reset. Which is true. Be relevant in this crisis, and we need to see all the different perspective about what's going on. Okay. Guys, to all those who are watching, yeah, feel free to give us a chat, or if you have message or questions, because we would like to grab this opportunity for having our speakers sharing their time with us, and I call them our small business hero. This is what's we're doing, right? We grab the opportunity to invite these awesome people who can help us possibly. Me, I'm learning from lately. I'm learning from Zam, and the Kevin, what you said, watch and adapt. Small business owners, that's very important. And I'll just mention, feel free to send your message or in our chat. So yeah, while I will proceed to another questions, we could go back to you. All right. Okay. Our next question is to Samantha. Samantha, I'm aspiring social enterprise, right? We discussed it before, while we had like downtime and talking about ideas. What do you think, to our fellow social enterprise or entrepreneurs who are currently struggling, I believe, and then some of them are starting, and as a sustainable strategist and a consultant, and being the expert, and you've been to different countries, and you've seen this, I'm assuming different cases. What's your tip or words of encouragement or practicality for the social enterprise sector?
So for me, definitely a lot of what Kevin and Albert said were very, very relevant. Whatever kind of business you are, you need to keep the pulse on what it is that the community that you're serving or the customers actually need and how their needs are changing. And for example, in social enterprise, even more so than any other type of business, your network is the most important thing. The people who support you, especially if you're having to suddenly, seek funding from NGOs or larger organizations. You should have been curating these networks to begin with. Your network is your lifeline. And you have to connect with, one, the wider world, and two, wider businesses in your local ecosystem in order to fit in. So I always talk about finding your place as a business within your ecosystem, and how as a social enterprise especially, it's important to be, have many feelers, to be really connected into the pulse of what's happening. So this enables you essentially to be a kind of center of knowledge, to be able to understand where you should pivot next. Because with social enterprise, every time, the whole point is you want to help a particular community, right? And once that help has been afforded, and then, the problem disappears, then you have to, pivot and move to either another community with the same kind of problem. So then you can use your expertise and apply it there, or figure out what this community that you want to benefit now needs help with, right? So it's about being flexible. It's about, like Albert said, renew and rethink. But I also think there's this element that people don't feel very comfortable with, which is uncertainty and innovation. For me, those two things actually come exactly together, right? Uncertainty creates tensions because we like to have some sort of stability in how we're thinking about our lives and our businesses and the communities that we're part of. But the problem is that doesn't exist. Stability that has never existed. There has always been change. Change is the only constant of life. So how do you want to fit in that change? How do you want to go with the flow as opposed to stay where you are, and then after a while you realize that you're actually really far behind, right? So it's about understanding the tension of uncertainty within yourself first. It always starts with the internal practice of understanding how you can sit with that. Because how are you going to lead a business where you don't know how to internalize that in the first place? So we always go back to what I talk about as inner work, to understand what tensions lie within yourself around how to deal with uncertainty, and then what tools that you actually want to have at your disposal to try to deal with that. So in some businesses, especially more successful ones, there is a constant innovative energy, R&D, constantly researching and developing new ideas, looking where's the next thing, how do we start to incorporate the next new thing with our existing business models or service offerings. And so that element, I think, is really key in now discussing the leadership aspect of where that comes in. Because even if I can embody that, right, that doesn't mean that my employees can embody that. Because I haven't brought up their skill set to be able to deal with these tensions and insecurities as well. To understand why we're not just innovating for fun. You know, there's a reason, there's a purpose behind all of this stuff. So it goes back to the person, the self, people who are involved in that, and imbuing all of their activities with this purpose. Because once you have that, then everything falls into place. You know why things are being done. And the pivot makes it that much easier, that much less, mentally stressful. For then when change comes and you have to suddenly, change everything that you've ever knew. So, I mean, that's my advice for a lot of, I guess, people who are struggling with the uncertainty right now.
All right. Thank you, Sam. So yeah, I'll just recap. And Sam, I approach Sam, by the way, guys, sometimes, and I ask some tips because about the sustainable or social enterprise, because I'm aspiring, and Sam helped me a lot by giving me some tips and information. So, and it's super helpful in my side. Okay, Sam said central knowledge is one of the key. The inner work, right, Sam? How to deal with uncertainty, which is also we can apply in traditional in any business. The constant innovation, and of course, purpose. And yeah, that's awesome, Sam. Thank you so much. And to those those are friends who are into social enterprise, later we're gonna invite Sam to, you can follow her, or because after this session we will have like a free consultations, and of course everyone also can follow Kevin, Samantha, and Albert. Thank you. I'll go to my question. My next question is to Kevin. Okay, Kevin. Hang on, Kevin, because I don't want to give you another question that is not relevant. But I wrote it, but my laptop is having a problem. So
So
for a minute.
you want me to help?
Yes, please, because I sent you already.
Yeah, I have it. So you wanted me to share small business owners struggle. What's the struggle and about you're not making it, things are a problem. When is the best time to fold or close the company? Or what are the signs do you think they need to change their business plan, or I would say like pivot, or look for something else? So I guess it's kind of like when do you decide this is a good time to exit? So the short answer is is as soon as you can determine that your business is not sustainable or worthwhile. The biggest mistake I see people doing, even when there is no pandemic, is they stay in a business that just isn't working, and then at the end they find out that it's not working when they can't pay the bills anymore, and unfortunately by then it's usually too late. They've lost everything. So let me elaborate on that a little more. So to me, the longer you drag this out, the more money you lose. And if you're losing too much money, then you can't move on to the next thing. I guess I'd go back to startup processes, right? You need to do an MVP and validate your MVP. And before you invest a whole lot of money in a business, make sure that your business is valid. So it's kind of like the same thing now in this pandemic. You kind of need to reevaluate your business. If you're in a restaurant business, you kind of need to look at it from scratch. Some businesses aren't affected that much. The more time you waste, the most important resources you have, capital, cash, and time, get wasted. And that's the most important things you have. So to me, if your business is in trouble during this kind of a period, you've got 4 choices. You can survive, right? So you need to take a look. Can I survive until things get better? If you're surviving, that means you're going to, burn up your savings. You're going to, you got to take a look at that. Are you financially capable? Are your employees willing to take pay cuts? Whatever the case may be. The second choice, you need to pivot, make a major change. If you're in a co-working space right now, you're probably looking at pivoting. Maybe I need to make sure I have some long-term tenants or something to tie me over till I can survive, right? Or you need to close it, right? Cut your losses, look for the next opportunity. The fourth choice is you can just wait around until it all runs out and then you have a disaster. And that's the one choice I don't recommend. But before you make this choice, I don't want everybody to hear my words and then say, oh, I'm going to close down the business because I feel stressed today, right? So you need to stop, take a deep breath, and get away from panic, get away from stress, and take a deep look at things, right? The big questions are, can I make my business sustainable? A lot of people have figured out by making cuts, maybe doing deliveries, or Albert mentioned about what he did with his co-working space. So now he can survive, he can sustain until things are back to normal with a big client. The next question is, if you can't make it a sustainable business, can you survive until things get better? I mentioned that already. One question to ask there is, do you want to take that risk? Is it worth working, getting rid of 3 of your employees and you doing all their work, working 90 hours a week for the next 6 months to barely make any money? Do you still want that business? Right? And what are your other options? And if one of these solutions is worthwhile, do you really want that, right? And if no, if you have a no to is it sustainable or is it survivable, then you need to pivot, right? You need to look at what your pivot options are, which is a whole other discussion. So some of the first steps I'd recommend is determine where you are now, right? Make sure you've got accurate numbers. A lot of small businesses everywhere, especially in Asia, they're not tuned into their numbers. They don't really know what their monthly expenses are. They don't know what their real profit is. They know how much money's in the bank account. You need to know that stuff before you can make these kind of decisions. You need to know your cash flow. Need to take a look at your obligations. maybe you need to talk to your lawyer about the lease you're in. Can you break that lease? What happens if you do? And again, we go back to what we talked about before. You need to have a real talk with your customers and your suppliers and your employees before you make this decision. Do you close? Do you pivot? The next step would be, where do you need to be, right? What's your target to being sustainable or surviving? And then you need to have the hard question. Can you realistically get there? And is it worth it? Because it may be too painful. You might be able to do it, but it may not be worth it. So my final words on this would be, pivoting is not failure. Many small companies have made major pivots in the past. IBM, Apple, Airbnb, they very successfully pivoted, and they're much more successful now than they were before they pivoted, especially like Apple and Airbnb. So pivoting could open up a great opportunity. It's when one door closes, another opens. The next takeaway on this would be, waiting doesn't make the problem get better. The longer you wait to look at these options and make a decision, the worse the outcome is going to be. And another last thing would be, the biggest challenge that most businesses have is knowing what their biggest challenge is. So figure out what the real challenge is for you going forward. Take the time to find that out.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. In addition to Kevin, of course, 100% I agree with Kevin. Pivoting is not a failure. Don't drag the problem, whatever you're facing right now in your business, don't drag it. And he also, just to share, I ran a hostel. Speaking of cutting losses and to survive. And all of these awesome speakers was telling to us, and this is a very good example of great minds together. They saying, your brilliant mind is to adapt. Innovation, adapt, and purpose. So, actual case, guys. This is for to those who has existing business who's struggling. Me personally, I'm struggling as a business owner. In the hustle, what we did, we retarget our market. Right now, we're having 50% BPO employees for long-term lease. We're talking about 3 months to 6 months lease. So yeah, and just sharing, this is a very good example. Pivot, adapt, and as Albert also saying, I'm the one who's gonna be there and find the solution, for every problem and arise. And then, of course, Samantha was telling us about the leadership, talking to everyone, and telling your why we do this. And I believe also leadership is very essential because, of course, all business owners I consider, in my strong opinion, are leaders. Thank you, Kevin. So we have a questions here, but we have a question, from the audience and from Liz. But before we answer that, we're gonna ask Albert also, So this, Albert, what do you think about? Because right now, a lot of people, in our feed, like becoming online seller, wanted to start a business, wanted to enroll in this, wanted to start something, but they don't know how to start. So, what do you think this aspiring entrepreneur or aspiring business owner what they need to consider, or to think about before they start the business. And second is to follow up, so you can continue to answer it. The second follow-up question is, what do you think? And for other speaker also, for Sam and Kevin, what do you think would be is there like a trend, or like is there an opportunity and threats that we could like potentially use in times of these changes and new normal? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Albert.
Well, great question. I think that ongoingly, I think that really what we have to understand is when we look at the technology. So I've been a technologist at heart. I've been in the technology industry for over 24 years, dealing with a lot of big enterprises. But when I made the pivot to actually owning a co-working space, it did actually expose me a lot to what Sam mentioned in terms of social entrepreneurship, mothers getting together, putting up a business, helping each other out, doing a lease-to-own type computers so that they have computers at home. Social entrepreneurship really is something that I'm very passionate about. And it's great that Samantha mentioned a purposeful business. And likewise, what Orly has done at the Entrepreneurial Beach Club as well, and his buy-in co-living hostel. So I think that if you look at what are the businesses that you really want to actually put up, especially during now, and it actually is a perfect. Somebody gave me this great advice. In fact, I talked to a franchisee of one of the top franchisers here in the Philippines, Potato Corner. So I asked them specifically, because of the way the business model works, you're a franchisee. Does the actual organization that handles the franchise, did they actually take a step back and say, let's see to your own fruition? But he said actually the franchisers, the franchise owners told their franchisees, we are there for you. We are there for you. We will take care of you. We will help you to facilitate the selling of your stocks and your supplies. So that actually, from a purposeful perspective, that is something that you want to be a part of, right? Because I was wondering, because I love Potato Corner. I love the sour cream and chives Potato Corner. But the reality was I couldn't get it because it was a brick and mortar kiosk. In supermarket, I couldn't get it. And then they pivoted. And they started selling it via community selling. So they allowed their franchisees to actually sell within their communities. And I got to, from a brand brand recall perspective, I will remember I had my Potato Corner French fries today. When it opens up the kiosk, I'll still be going over there and buying it. So I think the reality is, when you think of the business to actually put up, be relevant. He told me, Albert, all you have to remember is to be relevant, right? So even though it was a brick and mortar kiosk, I had to get my French fries from there. If you're relevant enough to the community, they will take the extra effort to provide and support your business. I bought it, and I'm still enjoying it here in the house. So it gave me that feeling that I was being cared for. So when I say be relevant, think of a business. If you're going to open up a business during this pandemic or even post the pandemic, think about how you can make that business relevant. Would I open up a spa or a foot massage place during this? Me and my wife love going to getting massages and foot massages. The reality is, it's something I'm passionate about. It's not something I'll open up as a business. If you have a restaurant, and Kevin talked about this earlier, you run out of pork, you better start thinking of a chicken dish, right? I've seen other businesses that have actually pivoted in the sense that, like, for instance, if Shakey's, as another brand, Shakey's provides their mojos, the legendary mojos, via the frozen section of the groceries. And some of the actual, and if you think about it, would I open up a delivery service now? Oh yeah, definitely. I think you have Grab Express, you have Food Panda, you have Lala Move, but are they cost effective for the mom and pop shop that owns a restaurant? I've seen people actually launch delivery businesses today. I've seen other organizations do other things that are relevant to their business because that's what their passion is. They tweak the business model to adjust, right? So that's kind of sort of to kind of summarize it. Make sure that the business that you're thinking of, I know everybody has passion. I always say that anybody with a passion can make money from it. But you have to figure out timing as well as the business environment. Your passion may not be relevant now. You may prepare for it now and then launch it post the pandemic. I've seen organizations actually, a lot of organizations have been talking to Via Appia about replacing the face-to-face meetings. So we know that in order for you to let's say for instance an insurance policy, everything is done face-to-face. We have organizations that are talking to us about, hey Albert, how can we replace the face-to-face with a digital application that's either web-based or mobile-based that still allows their salespeople to be productive, even in a situation wherein social interaction face-to-face is not allowed. So if you're an existing business, figure out how you can digitize it. Figure out how you can leverage on existing. Some insurance organizations are using Zoom. So figure out how you can still maintain that interaction with your clients without breaking off. Secondly, if you're going to start a business now, make sure it's relevant. We don't know how far this is going to stretch out. I don't know if you guys read that report on the artificial intelligent robot that was actually predicting when Philippines COVID will be done. And I'm going to hold them to this, right? It's in Singapore. They actually did a research. They used artificial intelligence. They said it's going to be done July 30th. So July 31st, I'm going to have a good time. We'll see how that goes out. But the reality is it's actually leveraging on the data out there that helps you to make those decisions. Don't try to do this in isolation. Get educated and figure out what is the appropriate thing to do. Those companies that are already digitally enabled in advance of the COVID, they're business as usual. They launched products and services. Social entrepreneurs like FH moms, Philippine home-based moms, Philippine home-based dads, and the mompreneurs out there, they actually have already interacted with each other via the Facebook groups, and they have a very good social interaction and support system that allows them to actually weather the storm. So those are some of the prevailing trends. Of course, telemedicine. If there's any way to align some of the things that you're thinking about aligned with telemedicine, then that's another direction you want to take it. But think about how you can actually take the brick and mortar and bring them to the digital age and make them relevant even now until after the pandemic.
And if it's okay for me to add on to the back of that, some examples that I've seen very successful in the Philippines is around actually restructuring the food system. So instead, Kevin mentioned earlier about logistics issues, and that entire thing is completely, irrelevant once you have farmers thinking innovatively, using technology that they have in their hands to create businesses, micro business models, just using Instagram, for example, right? And just being able to keep that personal interaction with your customers through Instagram, and also to put out content, put out information about, what the harvest is like, and to market, to enable their customer base to interact with them directly, as opposed to relying still on the logistics system that now doesn't work, right? And so this is one way of innovation that is, I feel, really, really useful. It's not, it's not always about innovating something using new technology or what new things can we come up with, right? Most of the time it's already there. Just use it in a creative way, right? And this has become viral, especially in China. I'm not sure if everybody has seen these, but some of these have turned into kind of like, it's an Instagram TV that has turned into some sort of telecommunications marketing. Like, it's a whole channel. There's a lot of interactive stuff going on. And these are small farming businesses that have created this potential and all of this creative energy going into like something on Instagram. So I think there's a lot to say here about what Albert was basically saying around where to look or how to kind of start. You already have these tools.
Yeah, in good, Samantha, just to add to what you said, a lot of my vegetables, of course, Orly might be well versed as well as Kevin and yourself. That there's a lot of vegetables that are in Baguio that people they couldn't get down here, but people didn't know how to buy them either because they couldn't get them to the wet market because logistically it's very challenging to get the vegetables to the wet markets. So what eventually everybody ended up doing was they started utilizing Facebook. It's a free platform. People were publishing it, and at the end of the day, you're also buying local and supporting local economy. So you're not only sustaining the farmers that are local to your vicinity, but you're also actually pointing them for the lifting of the because you have the business going. Now they now have realized Facebook as a free platform. I can sell my stuff on there as well. So yeah, definitely using existing technologies is tantamountly important as well, especially free technology.
Kevin, you'd like to add before I?
Well, I'm gonna, not that I'm not a tech-oriented person, but I'll add on a couple of more simple, non-sexy ideas. To add on what you're talking about, the agricultural, products. I'm in a pretty large condo complex, and across the road, just outside the entrance, there's a very poor little neighborhood, and there's a lady there who used to sell like bananas and a couple of things. I never bought anything because she really didn't have anything for sale. And when this couple of weeks into this, quarantine issue, people started coming to her. Well, can you get this? Can you get this? So she got someone to go to the big market here, the carbon market, and now she's got a whole truck coming every day. People lined up outside her place. She has things actually displayed. It's shocking. It's like 3 family members. It's like a sorry kind of thing, not that kind of thing, right? 3 family members helping her. She's starting early in the morning. She's still there after dark. And all of a sudden, she's got a booming business, And before, I bet she sold a couple hundred peso a day. Now it's literally a jammed truck full of stuff. Another thing I'd like to add is that the misfortune, unfortunately, also creates opportunities. There's a lot of restaurants. Let's use restaurants as an example. There's a lot of restaurants that are just not going to open. They're going to close. And you know what? Their operations are sitting there. Their equipment's there. So there's a lot of opportunity for people. Let's using restaurants as an example. Someone's always wanted to open their own restaurant. They have an idea they think would be good in the future going forward. It could be a great opportunity. You walk in, you're negotiating with a landlord under possibly ideal conditions. You can pick up the equipment for very little. A home-based business who says, "Oh, I have no money to do anything," maybe they could rent the kitchen of a restaurant. Think outside the box. Look at opportunities that may not be the traditional opportunities that would be available to people. So there's some other examples other than restaurants. I can't think of them right off the top of my head, but I've been through a few really bad economic downturns, and watching for the disastrous remains sometimes creates opportunities, and you can revive that asset into something that's producing jobs and helping the community again. So keep your eyes open and look in the places. Sometimes the best opportunities are right in front of you.
True. I'll just recap everyone in a sense. So it's all about to those who are thinking to start their business. Albert's talking about being relevant. Sam's talking about innovation and be creative. Kevin is talking about telling us to think out of the box. And in my addition, if you want to start your own business right now in this crisis, and I learned it from successful entrepreneur. find a problem that you can solve, and that if you're providing solution, in different ways, I believe that's a good start. And we need to remember, right? Airbnb, what else? Grab, Uber. These are the unicorn company who started in crisis. So sometimes, in this what do you call it, crisis, the best of us, will go out or unleash our human potential, and those who are sometimes they don't have a choice, they will become forcefully creative to find a way just to survive. Little that they know, they're solving one of the biggest problem. So anyway, thank you for your answers. And now we will ask you, anyone can answer from the audience and from the team. Her question is, what can employers do to help their employees to sustain their livelihood, considering that employers are having a hard time, pulling an income for their business? Let's start with Sam, please.
Yeah, so question is around how to help employees during hard times in a business where you might have to reduce costs. And I have a story here from a long time ago. I think it was during the oil crisis in the late 70s, where a big business in Europe, which was just a traditional kind of business structure with employees in a hierarchy, decided that they would need to lay off something like 30% of the staff because they couldn't afford it next month. And so imagine a really hierarchical business, with the kind of masculine leadership, with the pride that, we don't want to admit defeat sort of thing. And then them going into this space where, but we care so much about our employees and they are the core of business. So how do you marry those two things? So what they did was to invite everyone.
Matthew, right. Cut off, I think.
Yeah. We I think
Also,
Sam was
the last part of that story.
Sorry, I'm having internet issues.
You're right.
Can you still hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
Sorry, I was in the middle of the story. So they invited everybody into this meeting, and they were really open. And they said, look, here's the problem that we're having. Here's what the numbers look like. And we think that we will have to let 30% of you guys go because of this. So we wanted to open up a conversation. What can we do? So by having this dialogue with the employees, they were actually able to get employees higher up the chain, so employees that were being paid more, to some people who started to volunteer, saying, well, I'm happy to take a 50% pay cut, so then somebody else can keep their job. And I really like working with, that team, for example, who might be cut. So I really want to make sure that I keep working with them and that this business continues to flourish. And so one by one, people started saying this and started volunteering. I'm happy to give up. I'm a single. I don't have a family to raise, and I know this other woman has 3 kids and she's really struggling. So I'm happy to give up, some of my salary so that she can maintain her job. And so the more this conversation went on, at the end of the day, they didn't have to let anyone go. So this story, for me, really epitomizes what responsible business should be about. It should be about, again, the same relationship that you have with your clients. You want to also have that internally with your staff. And I think that honest conversation needs to happen in order for people to not feel firstly left out, because that's where a lot of misunderstandings happen, and you can land on some really horrible situations there. But I think it's also about realizing that you alone, the business owner, is not the business, right? So you need to kind of take humble pie there and realize that this is a problem that you alone don't have to solve on your own. You can solve it with the rest of your employees as well. And that actually builds a sense of loyalty. It builds a sense of ownership within the business that carries on long, long, long after the crisis is over. So I think with regards to the question itself, I don't have any specific, examples of solutions that might work for your business, because that depends very much on how your business is structured. Is it mostly online? Is it mostly in person? All of these things factor into the story, right? But the only thing that you can really start to approach this with is, again, the leadership aspect, right? How do I approach this as somebody who has the power to invite more people into the conversation, to find a balance that works for us, right? And if everybody is of the same mindset that, look, we need to get through this period of time, or we need to really pull together now because everybody is struggling and I want to keep this job because I like this job, right? So these are the sorts of conversations that I think need to really start happening very actively in every sort of businesses.
Thank you, Sam.
If I might add to that, I think very noble, Sam, that people were able to give up a percentage of it. What I experienced in Singapore when in the midst of SARS took a different tack. We understand that some companies, I mentioned earlier, the airlines giving them half the salary to tide them over the pandemic. Not everybody is that cash heavy, right? And it's great that if certain high level executives will cut their salary to ensure that that's great. That's great. But what some of the companies do that actually is a little bit different, and I haven't really seen a lot of that being promoted here in the Philippines. A lot of companies that figure that they have to fold up shop, they'll use their last peso to say, okay, I'm going to invest in the people that are currently with me. I will invest in training to figure out what is a relevant skill set that you can learn in advance of you letting you go. That help, you're right. It's kind of sort of like teaching them how to fish, right? The idea around it is, let me give you a new skill set that's relevant for this situation, and then that way you can. So even you're not with my company, even if that skill set's not aligned to the company itself, you have that. I will enable you. I will give you the skills to be able to survive not only the pandemic but afterwards. An employee that will resonate well with your employees because they will remember, in my time of need, I got the training. When you ask them to come back to you when the pandemic is over, you have a loyal employee for life if you're there for them throughout these hardships.
Thank you, Albert.
Can I add?
Before?
Go ahead.
Of course, Kevin.
If I could add just real quick, I like what Samantha and Albert said. It's really important, but I would even take it a step further back, not come up with we need to do job cuts, but our expenses are too high. We're not making enough money, but you need to have this conversation before you run out of money. You can't. Again, you need to have these conversations long before it's a disaster, which means you need to pay attention to what's going on in your company. And when you start having these problems, you need to have a conversation about it. You'll be surprised what expenses your employees know about that you could cut on if you present it that way. And then like Samantha said, you'd be surprised how many employees really don't want to work full time. You'd be just shocked. They'd be like, oh, well, could I work part-time instead? I was afraid to ask you. Or maybe they would take a cut if they could work from home and work less hours. I mean, and you'd be surprised how many people know what you can do to sell more, what you could do to generate your revenues. I mean, depending on what kind of company you have. So I guess it goes back to what we talked about before, have these conversations and make them deep and have them early. what I find is people have these conversations when it's already over with. But and then it's like, okay, well, what do we do in the next week? It's anyway. That's my 2 cents worth on that issue.
Thank you, Kevin. And in addition, also, as we laid off, my my opinion about this and the what we did in my company, I gave our team 6 months. I agree with you, Kevin. This is the 6 months. If we don't catch up, we fall. Then we show the strategy. We need to consider this, and we give them options. And I agree with all of you, because we asked them. This is the best time to ask your employees, how can we help each other? At first, I'm afraid because I don't want them nobody wants to lose their job right now. But I believe in transparency. That's what I've learned in my company. If I'm in deep trouble, I share it to them. They know our finances because we're just a small, medium company. But you will be surprised, employees, if they know what's going on. Oh, you will see one of the best your employees, and you will be surprised. They will shine, and that I think priceless. I'm so thankful you have a team, having that attitude and character, and we're telling them the exit plan. This might be happen. You need to find a job, or you consider part-time, or you consider. I know this friend Albert and Kevin help. So on a serious note, we are honest with them because this corona mess is, I think it's a global problem, right? Okay. Before I continue, I want to say hi to our friends in Cebu, Leovin, and in Manila, Nico, Emma. They have question Edward from Qatar. They have also a group for entrepreneurs and encouraging the employees from Qatar and Middle East when they get back in the Philippines. That's my dog. When they get back in the Philippines, they want to start their own business. Hello, Brother Edward. Okay, the next question is for everyone also. Aside from, the observations of the changing of everything, the new normal, what are the ways to determine the new buying habits of your potential customer or consumer? We can start with Albert, please.
Okay. As far as buying habits are concerned, I always say I'm a professor from the School of Google. If I really wanted to understand prevailing trends, I don't have millions of dollars to invest in research to be able to do a market study. The reality is, if you actually simply go into your browser and then say, I did a very simple search because I had to understand what new business that I want to launch within this pandemic or post-pandemic. I didn't want to wait until this was over, right? So I just said that what are the buying trends of consumers during pandemic and then post-pandemic. Three things stood out, right? One, you're going to see people buying local. It's not about importing imported goods, and now I can have imported chips or imported chocolates. They're going to go local as far as buying is concerned. They're not going to want to meet face-to-face. So a digital marketplace is extremely important in order for you to promote and sell your products. But again, just to kind of it's important for you to make decisions based on data, and there's no better place to get that data than the internet. What are you going to sell, right? During this time frame, is it a T-shirt? that people buy, or is it fruits or essential food products and basic essentials? Really understand it, because when you talk about the consumer, it's very different, vastly different, right? From technology, from the co-living, and we still have to have that conversation early. But you have to understand who is your consumer first, and then do very exhaustive research in order for you to understand. I actually like talking to people. So for me, it's a lot of coffee sessions, talking to people. So the guy that actually sold me the flavor packs for the for the French fries, I just said, he's not a good friend of mine. He's just somebody who sold it to me. Can I have a 5 to 10, 15-minute conversation with you to see how they've been treating you as a franchisee? So have those coffee sessions. And trust me when I say that during the pandemic, I've had more meetings than I've ever been able to handle in one day, because people are more accommodating. It's a lot easier to go on Zoom, go on Google Meet, go on Facebook videos or Messenger than it is to drive an hour, get entertained for 30 minutes, and maybe have to drive to the next meeting for an hour. So just invite somebody that's had something interesting to say, and have a coffee. Zoom, Facebook Messenger, get that information, right? And don't just use one data point. Use a number of data points in order for you to make that decision on buying habits.
Thank you, Albert. We have a question from Nico. All right. His question is, and I believe this is practical.
Is it the one on?
No doubt, stop it. We're professional. All right. So a letter break. Well, so that's the dog. That's the dog. That's my dog. Okay. Stop. Show. Go. Because it's my dog.
Surprise guest.
Because Nico's question is for Samantha, but of course Kevin and Albert can answer, like, how social media marketing impact the social enterprise. I think his question is maybe also how does the social media marketing impacted the social enterprise?
There's a few ways to sort of think about social media and social enterprise. So what I mentioned earlier about network, for example, it's really important to market the work that your social enterprise is doing in order to have visibility over the good, right? And the visibility is important because of things like people who are looking to invest in projects. Or could you mute yourself?
Can you mute your?
Yeah, I mute. I did.
Oh, okay.
Can you still hear him? No more?
No, but on the browser itself, there's a mute button to stop your sound.
I did.
Oh, okay, but we can still hear you.
All right. Anyway.
Okay, but
Bella, help!
so enthusiastic.
Yes. Okay, give me where we continue now. 1 minute.
Go ahead, Sam. No, co-working
No,
space.
he's getting rid of the dog.
My co-working space is on pets.
Thank you for the short break.
Don't worry.
I'm sorry for that. I apologize. My youngest kid is getting some attention. Okay, as you were saying, Sam.
So So actually, I think this is really important. The background of life. I think that's really important in social media marketing. I think a lot of the time, social enterprises are trying to communicate too much to, I guess, government or to corporates, and forgetting the human side of the marketing. So I actually think, I think Zoom meetings where kids are walking in the background, or you can see someone's dog or cat walking past, I think those elements are really, especially across the digital marketing platform or digital platforms in general, I feel like those elements are what makes it real and what makes it worth the connection. So this is the problem when we often talk about digital, right, which obviously social media is part of, where it's too manufactured. When Albert was talking about data, be very careful, because he was talking not just about numbers, right? He's also talking about emotional data, right? Having coffee with somebody to understand their perspective, right? Which includes the emotional side of it. How did you feel treated, right? Working with these people. Not just about, okay, what were the numbers, let's look month to month, all that stuff, right? No. So they're both aspects of it very important. The hard data as well as the soft data, right? In international terms, we also say cold and warm. So that in social media marketing is really, really important for social enterprises because of the purposeful business aspect. You have to communicate, you want always this warm data that comes across together with the cold data, right? To show the impact that your business is actually doing, especially in times of crisis, especially in terms of how can we support more people with this enterprise. That's the communication that needs to happen on social media, and that's why I raise the issue of Filipino farms now creating websites, creating social media profiles, and you can start to see, once you look at some of these farms and the kind of warm data that they're putting into it, sometimes it'll just be a 30-second video, for example, of someone going into the crops and saying how proud they are that they grew this thing. And it looks so beautiful today, it just rained, and look how amazing this farm is. That's the warm data that you don't get otherwise, right? So I think it's really important in terms of the digital aspect to have both. And there's a balance depending on what kind of social enterprise you are, what kind of business you are in general. And I think one other thing that's really important is forget selling. Don't focus on the sale. Okay, it's like, reverse psychology. Once you focus too much on the sale, you want to put out discounts, you want to put out offers, all this stuff, people tune out. On social media, people are there to connect. So be very careful about how these things can impact, and also be very, very focused on what the purpose is, the good behind the business, the responsibility in responsible business.
All right.
Can
Thank
I
you.
add on that real quick?
Yeah.
Can I add on that real quick?
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, to add on to what Samantha said, the biggest complaint I have about social media marketing is that nobody knows how to do marketing. It's all about advertising social media started as, from networking, and the core fundamental of networking is you develop a relationship first, right? It's not supposed to be a place for free advertising. And people destroy their reputations by advertising to people. So I have a few Facebook groups for entrepreneurs and startups and stuff like that in Cebu and other places. And every day 90% of the content I delete. And people say, well, why doesn't it go up faster? Well, I have to approve every single one or have someone do it, because it's just blatant advertising. And if you let that happen, people aren't going to come to your group anymore, or you're just going to turn them off. And the same thing goes with the customer interviews or talking to the customer, right? When I had a factory, I decided I was going to take vacation slash marketing trip. This is back in the 80s, I think, and or early 90s. And so we were going to launch a new product of embroidered shirts for the scuba diving market. So I went to all the diving shops up the east coast of the United States. I didn't go in to sell anything. I went in and said, hey, we're thinking of launching a new line of clothing, which we were. We have some design ideas. Can I show you some of my designs and get some feedback from you? Will you help me? They were very interested. I had product with me. Some of them asked, I would go get it and bring it and show it to them. But, and it wasn't being tricky. I wanted their feedback. I wanted to learn about the market. You know, people love to help people. Most people do. Most people are open-minded to giving you some help if you ask for help. Don't turn it into a sales thing. And if the selling thing should happen later, a different conversation, not part of that conversation. I'm done. Now you're muted.
Well, maybe Albert would like to comment on that while Orly is on mute.
Woof woof. No, I do agree. I think, and this is a sales 101, right? I've been a salesperson for 5 years and a technologist otherwise, but people make decisions based on an emotional knee-jerk reaction, right? I will not buy you. You may have the greatest product in the world, but if I don't trust you to deliver it in a timely manner on budget, then I'm not going to buy from you. Buying and making decisions is an emotional knee-jerk reaction. Data only comes in to support that the data that comes in price-wise, quality-wise, where is it from, that actually substantiates my first decision in the first place, right? A friend of mine came in from the US and he said, Albert, I see you having dinners with some of your clients. It might be a little bit frowned upon in the US, but I said that, listen, all things equal, if an individual or a business for that matter has two exactly same products, costed the same, would you actually buy it from the person that you have no idea who he is and what he's all about, versus somebody who actually took the time to understand what is your personal goals in life, what are your interests? I think that relationships is very important in any interaction or any relationship or any engagement for that matter. So I agree. I fully agree with both of you guys that emotions does play a very big part in making decisions.
All right. Thank you, Albert. We have another. Okay, the question is coming. Another question from Nico again. All right. There you go. But before that, what? Okay. So what marketing? This is for real estate. So what marketing strategies can you recommend for like to those who are into the real estate business? Any thoughts, Albert? First with you, because you're so you used to run a co-working space.
Yeah, actually, I real estate in general, right? So I did speak with somebody from another real estate industry in my conversation literally yesterday, right? He said that the real estate industry is hurting badly because during these times of uncertainty, it's the bigger ticket items that are least looked at, right? You're not going to get a new car, which is a long-term commitment. You're not going to get real estate, which is another long-term commitment. So I think that from a marketing perspective, unless you actually have a big network of people with very deep pockets, real estate as an investment may not be the right direction to take. Now, if I was somebody who was going to market a real estate business, I would actually try to figure out what are the thoughts, right? A lot of people are actually thinking of buying properties in the province. They want to have the ability to move out. So when you talk about real estate, in general, you have to figure out what people are looking for at this point in time, right? Is it actually a condominium in one of the busiest cities in the world, or is it a humble farm lot outside? Like you said, we kept on talking about pivot. Figure out, you're in real estate. You understand the inner workings of real estate. What are people looking for now? Market it in a way that actually touches on what their buying decisions are today. Is it buy now, then your first payment is starting next year? Those type of things, those type of promotions will resonate very well. Whether or not the real estate firms has the cash to offer those type of offers, it's another question altogether. But I think that marketing has to be relevant. Right? You can't just buy this 22 million peso condo today and you get a free washing machine. It's not really not gonna fly. So if you're asked about real estate marketing, it's a very tough time to sell real estate today. Will people make the decision moving forward? Definitely once the market opens up and jobs are more abundant.
All right.
Was the question about marketing real estate?
Yes, it was.
So I'll just throw in my short experience. When I was young, I was in real estate for about 10 years. I even helped auction off Donald Trump's failure in West Palm Beach, the Trump Plaza that went bankrupt, and a lot of other projects. And the people who made big money on real estate as real estate sales were the people who became experts in one area. And for example, in condos or in a neighborhood, they were the expert in that condo. So I had one condo that produced 80% of my income, and people I'd never heard of would call me because they heard I was the expert in that, right? This goes for a lot of fields, but especially in real estate, I would like make myself the expert of one building or one neighborhood or one type of commercial real estate or one neighborhood of commercial real estate, and then you're marketing your expertise. Anyway, that was my experience, and that was when there was 20% interest rates.
All right.
I think also if I was reading through that question again. It's actually more leasing and orientation. We do actually have a condo that is in one of the cities there, and the way I'm actually marketing it is actually live near your work, because nobody wants to travel the roads, not to have to deal with the checkpoints. If it's talking about property leasing, try to target the businesses that are around you and see whether or not there's something that the facilities manager can in terms of business can push your way. If it's about real estate leasing, that's my tactic. I would say that approach the facilities managers of the business around you.
Also, I guess I want to add a point around something that the real estate industry isn't necessarily privy to, which is urban design itself. So what this pandemic has thrown up is that suddenly the buildings that we have, are they relevant? You know, the neighborhood areas, the business districts that we have, are they relevant? That becomes a big question, especially when we talk about large firms having to pivot to digital working, right? So what that means essentially is that if you own real estate and you're now very aware that your tenants, especially companies, are not, their demand for that real estate is now going to vastly decrease because they've now invested in digital options. What does that mean for you as a owner of real estate, right? How do you pivot that? Again, pivot all the time. How do you be relevant? How do you maybe shift into a different form of space? For example, if you own a building that is just open plan offices, then you need to think really about how you can bring different types of users into this space, which is actually, pretty much only built for one thing. So how can you be creative with the asset that you have and pivot that asset to provide services that are more relevant to the local area, because people are not moving across the city anymore to travel to work, right? We need to focus on the localization and how you can be relevant within your local context. And the fact is, if you can't do that, then you are irrelevant as well.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Okay, we'll have the last question from Nico for Samantha, and then of course you can answer Kevin also. Albert, how do you think that the current model and scale would be suitable for measuring the intentions of nonprofit employees to start social enterprise or business?
So if I start to answer this question, which is a very kind of large, vague question, I would start with localization. I would start with scaling back. And I would start with a really deep knowledge of the context, again, data, cold data and warm data, in order to then map the purpose or your intended purpose of your social enterprise or business onto that local context and work from there. So the main thing is about understanding for the sake of innovation. What can you actually be proactive at trying different experiments with to hit on the right one? So the investment required in all of this exercise has a much, much longer return on investment than a traditional kind of, perspective with that. But that's what happens when you are in uncertainty and you want to maximize the sustainability, meaning that you can have this business for a long time, of your project. So those, I think, are the key aspects here from not just what I mentioned, but also I think the rest of the conversation that we've already had thus far.
Thank you, Sam. Kevin, you like to add?
Yeah, I'll pass on this. I don't know that I am very knowledgeable on this subject or totally understand the question. Sorry.
Okay. Now, I think, thank you so much. Before, I think the audience from time to time, they're sending message. And this is a very fruitful discussion and panel discussion. And definitely we're gonna do a replay on this. We recorded the video, and the team will summarize our webinar. I will ask every one of you, Samantha, where they can find you, Kevin, and Albert, if they would like to follow you, or they could ask you something for a free consultation. Please feel free to invite them. I will start with Samantha, then Albert, and then Kevin.
Cheers. So I'd like to just also round up with my sort of final thought from this conversation. I think for me, the main thing that needs to be talked about that hasn't been talked about enough is the internal emotional work. And I really appreciate that I'm sitting here with 3 men in the call and we were having a conversation around the emotional side of business. So I really appreciate that. And I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind, especially in times of crisis, how to manage the business in that way. If you'd like to keep track of what I'm doing, please welcome to follow me on LinkedIn and get in touch with me there as well. I'm very happy to support people who are struggling right now. I see this as my own personal pandemic project. How can I be of use to the community that I find myself in?
Thank you, Sam. Albert?
Yeah, so I guess my parting words is I think my solutions are a little bit more complex in terms of technology because I'm a very technology focused person. Um, um, I during the pandemic, I actually farmed. I actually have a home garden now that's made out of old tires, but that's kind of sort of how I get my hands dirty. But the reality of it is, if you're not digitized now, think about how you can get digital, whether it's a paid platform or a free platform. Get online, made yourself be heard. Um, uh, um, I mean, the beauty of it is we have the Philippines as an organization actually onboarded about 21 new employees over the pandemic period, and we're actually slated to onboard another 5 more within the month of June. This is kind of a testament to an organization that is fully digital, support digital initiatives of other organizations, and we're not just talking big corporations. Even cooperatives are actually looking at digitizing as well. So there is an opportunity from technology perspective to really weather the pandemic and succeed, if not grow, moving forward. So I am on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to follow me. If you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to help you and guide you. If anything else, I'm meeting Sam on some of our social enterprises and figure out what I can do there. But from my perspective, if it's technology, digitization, and digital trends, please feel free to reach out to me and be more than happy to help you out. If you're thinking of a new technology, new app that you want to build, let me know, and then we can have a conversation.
Thank you, Albert. Kevin?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not sure how easy I am to find my name. My name is a little too common, I think, but you can try. Also, I'll try to send this to here. I have a new Facebook group that I'm creating for some students and people trying to learn about how to improve business and stuff, but it's just setting up, so there really isn't much there right now. I have some other Facebook groups, Cebu oriented. If you want that, you can send me a message and I can share those, invite you to those groups. But my small business builder group might be good for people who are trying to get unstuck, make changes, start a new business, grow. And I'll be posting some free educational materials. I got a webinar on finding the biggest problem businesses are having right now. That'll be free. That should be out next week, I hope. And my email, I posted my email. You can reach me by email.
Thank you, Kevin. So we supposed to do the dance before we had this, the dance and dance challenge, hands of face. But again, Carla is not around. So, but if you practice, I'm all game to do this dance and face and dance because I cannot do TikTok. My kids will gonna laugh about it, and it's hard to stand up when your dog is running around. Okay, we will skip that.
No,
Okay, I think Albert is
have a
happy.
suggestion.
What?
I have a suggestion. Instead of though that's what he's already practiced. I haven't, but I have a thing about Zoom meetings that there's always someone who is like super close to the camera, like this, like super close. And then there's people who are just like, yeah, they're not even in the shot. They're like, way down here, and they're looking at their screen. So I mean, these are kind of like what I call the awkward dance.
That's interesting. Can you show us to us, please? Since you're the one who suggested, right? We're gonna do it, and then Albert, Kelvin, and I'm game. Right? But again, all right, we're gonna do that. So hi to our UK friends. Oh, Jean, hi, and Ella. I think Ella is a good friend of Albert, and yeah, so someone posted like hello to everyone. UK, Jean is a nurse and she's aspiring entrepreneur, business owner. So before we end, guys, can you give some like a few words, encouraging words, to all the viewers, or people who's gonna share this video, like encouraging words before we end this fruitful panel discussion. And before we do this, Sam, I like that. Yeah, please give your encouragement words, and let everyone like tell them we're gonna be okay, and we help and support each other. Yeah. Please, 2 minutes. Go, Sam.
Starting. Okay. Things will be really shit for a long time. But that's on the outside. You don't have to take that internally, personally. You can change who you are. That's the only thing that you can control. So I think my words of encouragement is to find the energy inside. You have it. Don't let people tell you don't have it, that you're not creative, that you can't emerge from this crisis with an amazing idea that nobody's ever come up with and make a successful business out of it. But key thing is do good.
Thank you, Sam. Do good. Be a good one. Yes, Sam. Albert, your brother, my brother from another mother. Albert, please.
Me and Orly cooking up some stuff for you guys. I think it's when we say cooking it up, we really want to Cebu. Hopefully, Kevin, we can link up with you in Cebu. But I think take a very positive mindset in challenging times. Things may look like, and I do like Sam's candid shit out there, but things will look like crap right now. Where you separate, there you go, maintain the social distance. Where you actually will see the people that actually succeed versus the people that actually fail, I think it's on a positive mindset. If it looks like crap now, rest assured tomorrow is going to be much better. Look for somebody to lean on. Reach out to somebody, not to ask for a loan or a handout, but ask their advice. What do you think I can do in order for me to not only survive this pandemic, but be more successful in the future? You'll be surprised that there's a lot of free advice out there. Just reach out to a friend, reach out to a stranger for that matter, and don't ask for a handout. Ask, what do you think I can do? In fact, I actually sponsored a personal branding session for somebody who acted from Bulacan, just to see if they can. And I told the person, the personal branding consultant, give her the advice. I'll pay for it, but that will actually hopefully will improve her life. So that's on the side of the people that are needy. But the people that are in abundance, and Via Appy is a very faithful organization, a very Christian-based organization. But for those that actually are in abundance, figure out some little way. I mean, if you think about it, actually, it's my son's 16th birthday today, and they're probably downstairs having some good time. But for me, this actually meant I had ability to actually reach a wider audience. For those in abundance, find the time to reach out to somebody that you think needs your help and provide it. It will be better. It will always be better. You just have to find how it's going to be better.
Thank you, Albert. Kevin?
Okay, so I'll jump in with a little different perspective, but focusing on the same idea that it's all about mindset, right? And this is a time to have the right mindset. So let's take a worst case scenario, right? I think I'll quote Samantha, everything's going to be shit or something, right, for a long time. Well, everything's changing, right? Huge change, unpleasant change. So from a business perspective, personal life might be a different issue, but from a personal perspective, look at change as an opportunity. That's the healthiest way for a businessman to look at the business changes. There's every time there's a change, there are huge losers and there's huge winners. So I guess you kind of have to decide, do you want to be the loser or be the winner? And I don't mean to be so brutal or insensitive, but it kind of boils down to that, right? So for I guess you could say half glass half full or half empty, but uh, look for where you can make a difference. Look at where, and the focus needs to be on the customers, the people. What do people need? What does your community need? It's the basics. What problems are there? What problems can we solve? And the best way to give back to your community, I think in the Philippines, is create some jobs, right? So how can we solve some problems, create some jobs, be a good role model, encourage other people to do the same.
Thanks so much. And there you go, guys. We have our first batch of small business heroes. Maraming salamat, Sam. Daghan salamat, Kevin. Thank you, Albert. And looking forward, if we have like followers or members that would like to connect with you, of course, we appreciate your help, in this kind of crisis, and your words, your expertise, your experience. I'm 100% like, I strongly believe these are the practical like suggestions or tips that we could like use in our businesses, especially who are struggling. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see you maybe 1 meter away again, as they said. Yeah, we can do that. So please, we're doing it now. But Sam, you're in Mandaluyong, we're in Manila, we can see each other. And Albert, I'll see you soon. And Kevin, yeah, I cannot get my flight ticket because I need to check my house in Cebu. So I'm stuck here. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. And Albert, help me on this to translate. Sana makaulit kami sa inyo. It's Tagalog. Go, Albert. Do it.
Yeah, sorry, you broke up a little bit. You need me to do?
Sana makaulit tayo na ma-invite sila again. We'll invite you again for another webinar.
Yeah.
But this time we're gonna do the dance, face dance.
Okay. I was a child of the '90s, just in case you guys are wondering. So don't mess with it. But we will meet each other soon. Hopefully, it was a great time. Great meeting Samantha as well as Kevin and Zoe. If it's not going to be a face-to-face EP, let's do something virtually. It was a great conversation. Thank
you, and see you soon, guys. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Salamat.